Hello, I'm Sean Lim, and welcome to After 10. Information and Communications Technology, or ICT, has become an indispensable part of 21st century life. On today's After 10, we discuss the future of ICT and hear more about a conference coming to Busan this fall that will take a worldwide initiative on the future of ICT. Stay with us. Korea has become the host country of the so-called ICT Olympics, which is held every 4 years and will be held this year in October. It is the ITU Plenipotentiary Conference 2014. The ITU is a specialized agency of the UN dedicated to the field of information and communications, and more than 190 countries are currently members. Cybersecurity, strengthening the basis of ICT in developing countries, and the global standard of information and communications will be the main agenda items of the conference. The ITU Plenipotentiary Conference 2014 will be held in October, with top ITU decision-makers gathering in Korea. Korea is expected to play a critical role in the conference as one of the world's ICT powerhouses. To hear more about the preparations, we have invited Deputy Secretary-General Lee Sang-hak of the ITU Plenipotentiary Conference 2014 Preparatory Secretariat on today's After 10. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight on After 10.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this important program.
So we have about 7 months left until the start of the 2014 ITU Plenipotentiary Conference in Busan.
Yes.
You must be very busy organizing it.
I'm not sure if the word busy is a correct word, but yes, in terms of there are a lot of work to be done. Last week, I was in Copenhagen, Denmark, for briefing the host country's preparation status and campaigning our election. And 3 weeks ago, I was in Lusaka, Zambia, in African continent for the same purpose. Actually, we have around 7 months left. 200 days is not enough and a lot of time to prepare for the ITU Plenipotentiary Conference. My colleague and I have to check every single detail in the field of establishing conference hall and ICT infrastructure, setting up the agenda, and coordinating and arranging for the transportation, the security, and VIP protocol, as well as campaigning the elections. So definitely there are a lot of work ahead of us.
You also mentioned that you were in Denmark campaigning.
Yes.
So what exactly were you campaigning for? And does that mean that there's going to be an election at the Plenipotentiary Conference?
Yes. Interestingly, ITU has 65 elected posts, including high-level posts and the radio regulation board and the council member stage. Among them, there are 3 big posts consist of the Secretary-General, ITU Telecommunication Standardization Bureau Director, and Radio Frequency Bureau Director. Among them, Korea, we are running for the Telecommunication Standardization Bureau Director. Even though the title is just the Telecommunication Standardization Director, but its importance and its influence is much more than title. Actually, the Telecommunication Standardization Bureau deals with almost all the information and communication method except radio frequency allocation. It means it will cover the internet governance and the conflict of patent, such as the conflict between Samsung and Apple, and information protection and cybersecurity, etc. Our second time to run for that post in 2006, we had run for the post, but unfortunately we failed. But now I dare to say we are positive.
So your work in preparing for this conference is taking you to many countries. This is a very big honor for Korea to hold this PP-14 conference. It's going to involve many nations. But how do you explain the significance of this event?
Let me start with the United Nations, UN. As you know, the United Nations has several specialized agencies, such as WHO for health, UNESCO for culture. ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, is one of these specialized agencies. ITU is a superb and the only international organization to deal with all the matters of ICT field. Plenipotentiary Conference is the biggest and top decision-making event in ITU. Actually, there are 3 General Assemblies on the Plenipotentiary Conference. Because of that, Plenipotentiary Conference is called General Assemblies above General Assemblies. And at the Plenipotentiary Conference, all the ministers from around the world, exactly 193 ministers from the UN member countries come together, and leaders from the private enterprise and academic part come together to make a final decision on the issue and agenda of the ICT field. The outcome of the Plenipotentiary Conference will be adopted by each government's National Assembly and the Parliament, and then it will be effective as international law with a binding power. So we believe that the Plenipotentiary Conference is quite substantial to our daily lives, and not only daily lives, but also it affects lots of parts to our politics and the culture and the social aspect of our lives.
When all these nations come together for this conference, they're going to be discussing the most pressing concerns related to ICT and then take it back to their home countries. So what is exactly discussed at this meeting, and how big of a global impact does it have?
We can imagine there are 2 worlds. One world is the visible world we live in. And this world has a very constant and concrete national border. And the other world is invisible world. It is called cyber world. This cyber world has no constant national border. That means many things, many agenda take place across the national border. It means many cooperation and much coordination are required to sort out this problem. There is ITU, International Telecommunication Organization, and the biggest meeting of this ITU is a Plenipotentiary Conference. So the ITU, as you say, the ITU was established around 150 years ago, quite a long time ago. It starts from the technical side, but now the ITU deal with many politics and social side and economic side matters.
How did Korea become the host country?
Since 1990s, we tried to host this big event because hosting this big event, Plenipotentiary Conference, is one of the ways to pay back to the international society. But unfortunately, Japan was decided to host the Plenipotentiary Conference in 1994. This Plenipotentiary Conference was held every 4 years, and each continent on the basis of rotation. We had to wait for 20 years. 2009, the Korean government, we decided to host the Plenipotentiary Conference 2014, and we applied for the hosting the PP at 2010 Plenipotentiary Conference, which was held in Mexico. And then after that, we had to decide which city to be host city for the Plenipotentiary Conference. As you know, Plenipotentiary Conference, it requires lots of the facilities, and it requires the hotels and other kind of the accommodations, and also we needed to think of the transportation. So finally the Busan city, Busan has quite good natural resource for the sightseeing and for the cultural event. Plenipotentiary Conference lasts for 3 weeks. It means there are 2 weekends. And after strong and deep negotiation and discussion, many delegations from the countries, they would like to refresh. So considering all these conditions, ITU and the Korean government have decided to select Busan as a host city.
The ITU Plenipotentiary Conference is held every 4 years and is called the ICT Olympics. The Global ICT Festival is going to be held in October here in Korea. ITU Plenipotentiary Conference 2014. The Plenipotentiary Conference can't come back to Korea for another 80 years, according to this system. So this is a very opportune moment. What does Korea hope to gain from having the conference come here?
There are several big major countries in Asia continent. So as long as I understand, the China and India and Australia, they are waiting for the chance to host the Plenipotentiary Conference. So because of that, we have to wait another 8 years if we want to host this Plenipotentiary Conference again. This PP-14, this Plenipotentiary Conference, is a kind of one event in the centennial. We have to utilize this opportunity to make our development of my country and also to contribute to the international society.
What is going to set this year's conference apart from other conferences, besides the fact that it's going to be here in Korea?
I can say 2 parts. One part is the next year, 2015, is the 150th anniversary of ITU. This year's Plenipotentiary Conference will produce another roadmap for the next development of the humankind, especially in 2000. There was MDG, Millennium Development Goal. MDG was coined to utilize ICT for the sustainable development of the humankind. But it will be finalized in 2015, so we need the next step for the future development. This year's Plenipotentiary Conference will create new blueprint, the guidepost for the next development. And the second one, we will invite multi-stakeholders, including the enterprises, academic side, and the civil society, because ICT has closely related to our daily lives. Because of that, we will hold the ICT exhibition and global conferences and forums and academic research programs.
You mentioned that there are 2 weekends during this conference for people to partake in activities, and I understand that you're preparing some exhibits and cultural programs. Can you tell us more about those?
Let me start with the ICT exhibition. As I said, at the Plenipotentiary Conference, there will be 193 ministers from around the world. I think it is a very good opportunity for them to share their knowledge on the technology and to see the brand new technology and services. The second one is the cultural part. Because the Plenipotentiary Conference will be held for 3 weeks, it's a very good chance to show our the cultural advantages, including our traditional cultural part, but also our modern Korean culture which is called usually Hallyu. So we are trying to prepare some good cultural events to show them.
Korea has transformed from a fast follower to a first mover in the ICT field. And this upcoming October, Korea, one of the leading ICT powerhouses, will be the host country of the ITU Plenipotentiary Conference 2014. From the ICT Expo, the Global ICT Forum, and the Smart Korean Wave Festival, the ITU Plenipotentiary Conference 2014 will be a stage for sharing know-how on the creative economy based on ICT. The Global ICT Festival will also be staged so people can enjoy the advanced cultural contents of the Korean wave.
And I also understand that the conference will have an impact on the Korean economy.
As I said, the hosting the Plenipotentiary Conference is a kind of contribution to the international society, and many countries, the host countries, utilize the hosting PP to increase the national brand and their international position in terms of the politics and the social side. So because of that, it's very difficult to count how much amount of money we can get. But research institute, they calculated the possible amount of money we can get by hosting Plenipotentiary Conference. They expect around $700 million US dollars, and in Korean won, 700 billion won. But I believe if we can get the initiative of some agenda, including IoT and ICT convergence, and we will win the election, I think the economic potential is much more than that.
President Park has long advocated a push towards a creative economy paradigm. How does this conference align itself with that vision?
The main theme of the creative economy, I believe, I understand that to create new market and new decent jobs by utilizing ICT and science technology. It is very similar, and it goes line with the goal of the ITU. In 2003 and 2005, ITU already announced the next development should go with ICT and economic and social development. As I said earlier, the MDG, Millennium Development Goal, by United Nations is very same line, is in the very same line with the creative economy. So because of that, I believe Plenipotentiary Conference is a very place to share our experience of the creative economy and our vision on the creative economy with other countries. It's a very good place to spread out our creative economy to the world.
So what will make this conference this year a success?
We have lots of the support to make it success. We have established a preparatory secretariat 1.5 years ago, and this secretariat consists of the various experts from various fields with their knowledge and their experience. And then we have the government-wide supporting group, which consists of 16 vice ministers from all the ministries, usually from the academic side and enterprise side. With their professional knowledge, they often provide us with very good substantial advice. And lastly, but not the least, we get the political support, not from the ruling party, but also opposition party. It is a quite big success factor for the Plenipotentiary Conference, I believe.
So one of our viewers wrote in, and they actually, I guess, have some knowledge of the ITU. They said that the ITU conference is also called the ICT Olympics. So why is that?
The first, these events are to be held in every 4 years, and each government on the basis of the rotation. Second, these events last around 3 or 4 weeks. It means there are so many topics and in so many events during this event period. And the third, all the member states of the United Nations, exactly 193 member states come together, and sometimes on behalf of their regional and continental interest. It's very similar to the Olympic Games. We call this ITU Plenipotentiary Conference ICT Olympic. We count this year's 3 big Olympic Games. The first one is Winter Olympic Game in Sochi, and second one is World Cup in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and the third one is ITU Plenipotentiary Conference in Busan, Korea.
One of our viewers wants to know if we're going to be able to get the chance to see any well-known scholars or star CEOs.
I'm sure there will surely be some very big figure from the political side and the private company side. And now we are on the way to inviting some head of state also. But at this moment, it's very difficult for me to say in detail. So because most of the cases, the name of big figures who will come to actually this event usually will be announced 1 or 2 months before the main event.
And is there anything else you'd like to tell our viewers about the conference and its significance?
This Plenipotentiary Conference is not just a conference. It's not just only one meeting. Before the Plenipotentiary Conference, each continent has 4 or 5 preparatory meetings. It means around at least 20 meetings, 20 preparatory meetings is to be held before the Plenipotentiary Conference. It turns out it deals with almost all the area of the ICT field, and this ICT field closely influence on our daily lives. So because of that, I would like to ask the public general to provide us with more support.
Because it will affect all of our lives.
Yes, and as you know, the successful hosting such a big event and a conference will not be made by government only. It should go with the general public's attention and support.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us here tonight on After 10.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure too. Thank you.
And that does it for us tonight on After 10. Join us again next time. We'll see you soon.
We will continue to do our best to improve our show based on the perspective of our viewers. Always feel free to leave us any comments, great ideas, or suggestions you wish to share with us.